Welcome back after some holidays, and welcome to everybody who's here in person and to those who are watching on Facebook. I'm going to start with the apologies. We've had apologies from Councillor Reading, Councillor Hamilton, Councillor Taylor, Councillor Lambert, Councillor Winter and Councillor Candy. If there's any other apologies, can you please let me know? Okay, all those in favour? Okay, Councillor Weymouth. Councillor Barrow. Okay, all those in favour? Nobody's upset that anybody's doing it. Okay, I'm going to suggest that the vice chair with me. You don't have to. I don't want to force anyone. So anybody who'd like to or propose someone to come and vice chair with me, please raise your hand.
Can I propose Councillor Weller?
And no.
She didn't mind.
I don't mind anybody.
I just think girl power.
Quite scary spots.
Yeah, okay, Councillor Brooks. Nominate, I hope everybody's okay with that. Anybody opposed to it? You can wrestle him on his way. It upsets you. I'd like to also welcome Councillor John. This is our first meeting, so we'll go gently if we can. Be prepared for anything, especially in the next few sections. Okay, so do we have any declarations of interest?
Chair, we haven't received any of the office in the year, haven't had any requests for interest.
Okay, brilliant. Moving on, minutes of last meeting. I know that they've gone out very late, so if anybody hasn't looked them over, we can defer them, but otherwise, is everybody okay with the minutes of the last meeting? All those who are okay with it, raise your hand. Oh, do we have a proposer? Councillor Weller, second is Councillor Huttle. All those in favour? Oh, everybody's fine with it. Okay. Okay. Okay, anybody against, just in case? No, any abstentions? Oh, Councillor Barrow, he is abstaining. Okay, moving on. While I'm signing this, do we have any councillor questions? Officer, no? I don't think we have any.
We haven't received it in the office, chair. And say that we should have received it by 3 o'clock today, but your discretion can be.
Okay, Councillor James, I'll just let you put your hand up. You can ask the question, but I can't guarantee it'll be answered.
No, it probably won't, it doesn't matter. There's just two things. Remind me again with our rubbish bin, the one on the Esplanade, are they ours or Dorset Waste? I can never remember who is what.
There are bins that are contracted, Dorset.
I was going to say, could I make a request that somebody actually goes and takes a look at some of the blue bins on the Esplanade? Because they have pictures of sweet little old ladies, little old ladies that pick up rubbish, but they are really dirty and they're looking really drabby and unkempt and quite untidy. So I'd like to request that somebody can go to have a look at them and tidy them up, please. The other one is it was Merchant Navy Day service on Saturday is gone, and I'm not sure if council has received an invite or not, because I only saw it on the Merchant Navy Facebook page. I was in attendance on the mayor, and we were the only councillors there, and it was noted by a few people that nobody else was there. So I'm not sure why nobody was informed, but I'm just going to request to see why and who needed to inform councillors that they should be invited. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor James. Do you have a response? we'll get a response back to you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on, the town mayor's announcements says that she hasn't left me anything to announce, so I expect she's been very busy. I've looked at her diary, it's been packed through the summer. I'm sure she'll give you an update though the next time she's back, because I don't want to speak on her behalf as deputy. I've attended a couple of things, including actually an art exhibition by Stride, which is the mental health organisation working with people on probation. That was quite interesting, quite fascinating. But I'm sure Councillor Reading will have a lot more feedback about all the wonderful things she's done through the summer holidays, which have been vast. Okay, moving on. Public questions. Do we have any public questions?
We have not been notified of any other questions. Yes.
I'm going to assume no one in the public wants to ask
No,
any
you're right.
questions. Okay, that's all right. Okay, that moves us on. I hope this will be like a record meeting. We're at 7:10 now. Okay, so we're at number 8, which is budget monitoring. I'm going to hand over to Officer Miller.
Thank you, Chair. Under pressure to do this very quickly, so I will keep this brief. Just to introduce the report, I'll do it in the context of where we were when Finance and Governance Committee considered the Q1 report back in July, and where we are now. I'll just give a brief bit of information of where we're going in the future and how we're going to address the budget process next year. So, as I've mentioned, the Q1 budget monitoring report has previously been considered by the Finance and Governance Committee in July. And as in previous years, they make the recommendations to the full council on any issues that they identify in respect of the budget. Members will note that we have included details of major variances and environments for the first time in the information we circulated this time round. The reason for this is to add some transparency to the numbers, to give members a bit more information. At the Finance and Governance Committee meeting in July, budget holders were present and they were asked questions in respect of their budgets and their service areas. So we are trying to make them much more accountable, which is the right thing to do, for their own service areas and budgets. And as I say, they were there and they were able to answer the questions which the committee had at that time. It is worth noting that the scrutiny of the budgets was undertaken for the information supplied as at the end of June. Members will all be aware from the news that there are a lot of things going on in terms of inflationary pressures on fuel and utility bills, and in terms of the national payable where information is starting to be circulated. However, there was no specific recommendations which came out of the Finance and Governance Committee to full council. So tonight we are just asking for the report to be noted, but I just think it's worth touching on a couple of areas which have where more information has come to light since then. Inflationary pressures are causing concerns to councils up and down the country, and the Finance and Governance Committee will work with officers as part of the Q2 budget monitoring process to understand the impacts that this will have on the budget and the actions that will be taken to mitigate the risks associated with these pressures. Members will recall when we looked at the upturn last year, we did allocate some reserves to supporting the budget for this current financial year. So we are quite well placed to mitigate any pressures which we do have. But I would ask members not to become too complacent, because there will be some challenges still to come over the second half of the financial year. Going forwards, we will soon be embarking on preparing budgets for 2023-24, and the Finance and Governance Committee will be asking the budget working group to again come together to work with officers to produce next year's budget, which will be through the committee cycle in December and January. But just for now, members, we are asking for the Q1 budget monitoring report to be noted.
Okay, does anyone have any questions they want to ask
Yes, I did have a conversation with Chairman of the Finance and Governance just before the meeting regarding the potential impact of the potential pay increase for this year. I believe, Ian, you do have a figure relating to the amount of increase needed in the budget for every 1% increase over and above what we budgeted. I don't know whether you can share that figure, those figures with us, could you?
So just on the pay award, I'm sure members have picked up in the national press all the information that was circulated around to members. The pay award is still ongoing, negotiations are still ongoing. The government has come back with an offer of £1,925 per person, irrespective of what band they are on. So the impact on this council, for example, we just do a brief rounding of that. So 2,000 is rounding it up over 50 employees. So that's for this council, the impact will be 100,000 plus on cost. So we're looking at around about £130,000 the impact of the pay award for the current financial year. We have built in 2% into that already, which equates to around £40,000. We've got £30,000 which was put into the budget as a general inflationary contingency, and the reserve for the budget support is around £40,000. So we've got funding to contribute towards that pressure of around £100,000. So it's still 30.
Sorry, Chair, can I ask, that figure, was it not 1,900? What does that equate to in terms of percentage increase? I mean, in order to give an understanding of whether that's likely to be acceptable or not.
Okay, so in terms of percentage, it obviously depends on the banding.
Yeah.
So if you're at the very highest level, it could be an increase of 3%. If you're at the very lowest level, it could be an increase of around 8 or 9%. So because it's done per band, irrespective of the banding, it's difficult to actually say what the percentage increase is. But on average, I would say it's around about 7%.
Anyone else? Okay, so
Can I
Oh,
propose, can I propose we accept the,
so we have a proposer, Councillor Harris, any seconders, Councillor Gray. Okay, all those in favour? Okay, thank you. All those against? Any abstentions? All right, okay. Moving on to committee membership. Obviously, we have a new councillor, Councillor Toft, and it is proposed that she takes the vacant seats on services and appeals. So does anybody want to talk on that? And we get to Councillor James. Okay, we have a proposer, Councillor James. Seconder, Councillor Brooks. Okay, all those in favour? Yeah. Yeah, sorry, are you in favour, Councillor? Anybody against? And any abstentions? Okay, so okay, that leads us to number 10 on the agenda, which is one Weymouth. So I'll hand over to Councillor Officer Mills.
Thank you, Chair. I'm quite late.
Yeah, not quite there yet.
The one Weymouth policy was taken to again the Finance and Governance Committee in July. Members may recall that the original member of the protocol was agreed back in 2019 as part of the suite of policies which were approved when setting up Weymouth Town Council. As part of the overall policy review, we have taken the opportunity to review the policy now. It allows us to look at how we all work together, that is officers working together across all the different departments, how officers work with members, and how councillors and officers work with our communities and partners. Although the document looks very different, it's still a member officer protocol. We think, having done the review, that it is much more fit for purpose, and it's much more outward looking, and it builds on us as a town council, and it moves away from some of the previous ways of working now that we are an independent town council, and we're asked to approve the policy for adoption.
Does anyone want to speak on this? Wow, like this is going to be good. Councillor Gray, come on.
Not working. The only thing I would say is, I think it's probably worth noting that we need to revisit this before the end of this council, so that we see it fit for purpose going into the next election, because post-COVID and post this recession, we probably need to look at it again.
Anybody else want to speak on it? Councillor Hayes.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor. No, I'm just really speaking in support of this. I know when it came to financing governance, there was a few concerns that it didn't actually reflect sometimes the work that some councillors are doing for the town council. So I'm really pleased to see that the little diagram has been changed to reflect that the active work that some councillors are doing on this town council. And without their work, the council wouldn't be as successful as it is. And I think we're all in agreement. So I'm happy to propose Deputy Mayor for a seconder.
All those in favour? Okay. All those against? And anyone abstain? Okay, so that is carried. Okay, next one, volunteer policy. I'll hand over to Officer Dunning.
Thank you. So the volunteer policy has been recommended to full council by Finance and Governance Committee. There have been some slight amendments since Finance and Governance Committee reviewed the document, particularly on the area of insurance. It's really important that we have this policy in place. It's not just to support volunteers and encourage volunteers, but it's also important to safeguard the volunteers and also the council. The policy is within the appendix, and the recommendation is for the committee to approve the policy for adoption.
Thank you. Can I just speak on this quickly and say that I actually had someone at my workplace who was desperate to be on a voluntary programme with Weymouth Town Council because of all the hard work they were doing at Tumbledown. And Weymouth Town Council took them on, and they're doing really well with it. They're really pleased. It's put them in a really good, positive place. So it is a fantastic, I wouldn't say programme, but it's a fantastic policy to have in place. And it does give opportunity to people who are looking for that step up, or that step in between work and being involved in their community, and it can have some real validation, especially when it comes to people who are offering their time to Weymouth Town Council and being recognised for that. So that's what I wanted to say. Okay, anybody to speak on it? Councillor Oral.
Thank you, Deputy Chair. I'm very much in favour of it as well, just particularly as you mentioned, the Tumbledown. This is a very valuable policy. We have been having volunteers on site, and having this policy written out clearly is extremely helpful. So I very much endorse it. And there's no further discussion. I have to propose it.
I think we've got Councillor Gray, but I'll put you down as a proposer.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to confirm that there's been no changes since the FG to the agreement that we would pay for the insurance for friends groups. That we voted on that separately some time ago. So just want confirmation that we've made no changes to that.
I think that we have made no changes. It still remains as.
Thank you.
Okay, anybody else to speak on that? All right, then, we have a proposer, councillor Oral, do we have a seconder, councillor Watley? All those in favour? Anybody against? And any abstentions? Okay. carry forward. Do you think we've done by half 7? Okay, let's get it, keep going. Okay, so now we're on to information items. I hand over to Officer Denny. Oh, no, not information items. Here we go.
Thank you, Chair. We have got a number of items there, as you say, which are information items. Obviously, if there's any questions on those, then we will endeavour to answer them, but if not, they are to be noted.
And anybody want to speak on the information items? Councillor James?
Sorry, I just want to ask Councillor Berman a question about his you say about the school, I'm just trying to read it. Is it all the secondary school?
Yes.
And can I ask where you put 14 to 19-year-old? Would you do it on the age or the year group?
Year group.
Because people like my grandson, who's one of the younger, he'll be in the same year as people at 14. It won't be 14.
No, it will, I think it runs from year 9 to year 13.
Right, okay. And the other one, did you include Westfield?
Yep.
You did? Okay.
Yeah, and Compass and
There is another one, but I can't think who it is.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Wyvern. I engaged Wyvern. It was something that they were.
okay, so you've got all your qualities fit.
Yeah.
And everything else.
Yeah, and then what we'll do is, because this is just a steering group,
Yeah,
once the steering group has kind of decided which direction they want to go, we'll then re-engage all those schools as well in terms of a wider net of pupils, because it's just 5 from each school at the moment.
yeah. Okay, now I'm just thinking in the future, sort of like, what, you know, we'll be able to work with and things like the access route, the better to get off the ground again. That's a good one for younger people to be involved in the work and stuff like Westfield on that.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay, lovely. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other people wanting to speak on any of the information items? Okay, if not, we're moving on. This is the final part, which is the neighbourhood plan. I'm going to hand over to
Sorry,
Austin.
Chair, do we not?
Oh, yeah.
Do we not? No, but it's just, we're just noting this. So we're not.
Yeah, it's just noted. You're up.
Thank you, Chair. So we now move on to a report on the neighbourhood plan. I will ask Councillor Norwood to introduce us a bit further in a moment's time. Just to remind members that if we wish to discuss the confidential appendices, we will need to move it, exclude the public and the press will need to vote on this.
Thank you. There's quite a long report there. The first part of it is a progress report. The second part of it is the substantive element. So the progress report is just an information item. In summary, the important things are we completed the second survey and got nearly 500 responses, and those results will be published shortly on the website for everyone to see. We thank Clive Tuck for the work he did as the project manager, and a replacement, he's left Weymouth Town Council, and a replacement is being sought as we speak. We gained funding from the government's Design Code Pathway programme. Then we got 30k, which is helping us follow a path to potentially produce a design code for the central area of Weymouth. And initial meetings and walkabouts have taken place with members of the Department for Levelling Up. Online workshops are progressing in September. And I think councillors should now have had an individual email inviting them to sessions. And if not, you can look on the Weymouth social media, along with the general public. There are 4 dates. There are 4 separate sessions on different parts of the Weymouth town centre. And these sessions will involve a virtual tour of Weymouth and and the people's present opinions will be sought on what they would like to see. This is a design code in a future Weymouth. So I recommend people, if they can spare the time, to attend those. I suggest attending the first one on 21st of September, 7:30 to 9 o'clock, and then decide whether you wish to spend more of your time on the other one. But please give it a go. Thank you. We've also selected Paul Weston, the community, who is a community consultant. He's going to give us technical advice on preparing our plan. He's already worked on the Portland plan and is working on the revision of Portland plan. Well, he's worked on a large number of neighbourhood plans in the southwest, and he's already revitalised them. So the substantive part of this really came out of some of the early analysis. It was clear from the survey that people thought that better paid jobs and affordable homes for local people were two of the critical issues of the way. So we commissioned a housing needs analysis from AECOM. This was paid for by locality, and it came up with a need for, in the planned 17-year period, a need for between 1,775 and 36,049 houses per period. And when you look at the local plan, it says 3,225 homes for Weymouth, of which at best 35% will be affordable homes. That leaves a significant shortfall. There's an error in my paper. It should not read 531, it should read 646, which is the same number that's in the confidential appendix. So I copied the wrong number forward. Apologies. That appears later on in the agenda as well. So please take that from the right and correct it. Doesn't really affect the story. The story is that the local plan in itself will not deliver the affordable homes that Weymouth needs. And that's quite a positive view. If you take a more negative view, that currently market housing is only delivering 14% affordable homes against a 35% target, that number could significantly increase. So we decided that we do further work to identify site options across Weymouth for both affordable homes and local employment sites. That work was again carried out by AECOM, and we preceded that work by issuing a call for sites. We received 14 responses from the call for sites, and AECOM included a large number, 50 odd, Cllr sites, that's strategic housing land availability assessment sites, which are listed by previous councils, but also Dorset Council has taken the list. So the numbers are there. That delivered a number of sites, 30 approximately. We then produced some criteria as to which of these sites should we be considering for allocation. The details of that criteria is in the appendix. It enabled us to shortlist some 20 sites. And that shortlist of 20 sites is sites for further consultation and assessment before considering sites, allocating sites in the neighbourhood plan. And sadly, that list, a lot of the Cllr sites, the owners of the sites, we need to go back to them and get them to confirm that the sites are actually available for development. I assume that because they're in the Cllr list, that's already been done. So we're going to be doing that before we publish the shortlist. Once we've published the shortlist, we'll be going out to consultation. Once we've gone through the consultation and done more evaluations, the process is described again in the confidential appendix, we'll be producing a further list of sites. And that will go out for a further formal round of consultation. And then finally that gets revised and we go out for referendum on the neighbourhood plan. That process involves discussions with the local planning authority because they set the policies and we need to, they set the strategic objectives and we need to fall within those, particularly as we're in this bringing forward sites outside the defined development boundary as exception sites. And exception sites, the rules have changed and the interpretation of the rules need some clarification. So that's a process we're going through, and we've been in contact with the planning policy team. Developing sites outside the development boundary is not an easy solution to consider. But this potentially reduces the best case shortfall in affordable homes from 646 to 115 homes. So there's a lot to be gained from doing that. But exception sites are difficult. So some difficult decisions to be made downstream. That's why we're consulting and so on. So more work downstream will help us do that. We can even obtain viability assessments as part of the Weymouth Neighbourhood Plan process, again funded by locality. There's a real opportunity to make a difference in Weymouth. So I'm hoping that people have had an opportunity to study the numbers and support this, and I'm happy to take any questions on the process in this session, but if people want to question individual sites, after we do move into the confidential session for that one, because those sites and their details are confidential at this point in time. Thank you. So I should have mentioned, sorry, that this paper was first agreed by the steering group for the Neighbourhood Plan, then was presented to planning and licensing, and was recommended to be brought to all councillors' attention at full council meetings. What we're doing today.
Thank you, Councillor Norton. Okay, I'm going to Councillor Gray and then Councillor Hunt.
David, my ears pricked up when you said the rules have changed on exception sites versus affordable and social housing. Did you say that? Because
I said something like that.
have they checked? Because obviously exception sites, it's easier to get affordable and social housing on exception sites than it is anything else, because the rules are slightly, I don't know, the rules still relaxed, or are they? Because that would be a bit of a disaster.
So in previous times, everybody talked about rural exception sites.
Yes.
Where the rules are quite tight as to what should be considered, could be considered as an exception site. The revised NPPF, National Planning Framework, talks about first home exception sites, which introduces potential for larger sites to be brought forward. It does also have some desires around the proportion of first homes that are delivered, but it's not, it's stated as a desire rather than a must. So there's some flexibility. But we need to talk to Dorset Council Planning Policy Team, because this is relatively new.
Yes. Okay. I'm not.
I'm sorry, the other bit to clarify is that affordable homes is both homes to buy through some discounted scheme, affordable rent, which is 8% of the market value, and social rent, which is set by the government or council, it's set on a regional basis.
And in the exception sites, are you considering in perpetuity through a body?
So we've not got to that point yet, but in our formula our objectives, and there's a list of the objectives where we've got to so far in the confidential appendix, we see benefit in going through community land trusts because it retains such housing in perpetuity. There's also an implication in the new, in some of the new words in the MPPF, that other affordable houses can be retained, and not all fall under the right to buy.
Yes.
So there's some clarity in that area.
Yes. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Huckle.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Just to say that I joined this sort of group and steering group after my year as mayor, which May. I missed some meetings because I had 2 holidays, but I'm quite amazed actually. I'm quite amazed actually at the amount of work Councillor Northern has put in on all of the neighbourhood plan, not just the housing part of it. In fact, we were here this afternoon doing jobs. And as far as housing is concerned, a couple of our councils have been present on and off, including Councillor Hamilton, who I know would have loved to speak tonight, but she is actually on holiday this week. She has been very involved for a period of time, and she's recently returned to us. But we've also got a number of, shall we say, qualified local residents involved, quite a large number of those. And this, with the consultants that have been used, has been very well researched. And I'm quite happy to second the proposal that we continue with this, going further down the drive to hopefully complete this part of the neighbourhood plan with the other few parts as well, within the timescale that we're hoping to. Thank you.
Councillor, anybody else to speak on this? Okay, Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Chair. I've worked on an awful lot of neighbourhood plans. Dorset Council adopts them once they're completed. I must have worked on about 20 going that way. I've worked through an individual plan from first meeting to last. I'm sorry to say that we're going about this plan the wrong way. The people who know the needs of an area are the people who live and work there. So the people who know what needs to be done in Upway are the people who live and work in Upway. And that's true of Radipole and Littlemore and Preston and White and everywhere else. The way to do a neighbourhood plan is to start in each of the communities and ask each of the communities what they want for their area. And then you build a plan for the overall area, aggregating those schemes together. We're doing exactly the wrong way. What we are doing is deciding at the council what it is that needs to be done. And I'm going to.
We've already had this consultation with the public. I went to one in Upway.
Chair, am I speaking at the moment with someone else?
Right, yours.
Thank you.
Carry on, Councillor Fry.
As I said, this is the wrong way to produce a neighbourhood plan. We are deciding what is best for all of these communities and will then go and talk to them about it. I don't agree with the approach, but this council's gone on to make it even worse. Not only are we not asking people what we should be doing in their areas, we are deliberately hiding our discussions from them. I've been on County Council, London Borough, District Council, Unitary Council and Weymouth Town Council. And this council has asked us to do something that I've never ever seen before in 20 years of being a councillor. This council has raised non-disclosure agreements, gagging orders, that it's asked councillors and community volunteers to sign, and I'd like to offer my congratulations to those who refused to do so, because we don't want the public to know what the discussions are that we're having. That's no way to run a council. This plan is proposing to build on sites, some of which have been rejected by previous councils. I would like to debate those issues. If I bring it to this forum and ask to debate it, this forum will take it into confidential sessions so the public can't see the issue that I'm trying to debate. We are debating these issues in secret. This isn't the way to write a neighbourhood plan, and I'll be voting against the recommendation. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Northern, do you want to respond?
Yes, please. I'll try to stay measured. We have gone through a number of consultation processes. We've been having held walkabouts. We've gone into local areas. We've asked people what their views are. You can see the reports that have been published on the consultation. They've been published. We've sought. We have the intention to publish this information when it's been properly considered and not raise undue alarm amongst the population about sites until we have confirmed that the owners are prepared for those sites to be considered. That isn't a rule that we've made up. That's advice from Dorset Council officers. I have it in writing. I've also, before we went into this process, consulted on what should a proper process be. And the advice from Dorset Council, I need to be careful what I say here, was that you, as long as you need to respect the confidentiality of the owners who have presented sites until such moment as we've gone through the level of assessment. We're following here the locality process which outlines the process. We are not allocating sites at this stage. We're considering allocating sites, and we're trying to select an appropriate set to go forward for consultation. As it says in this paper, we will do so once we've confirmed the availability of the sites with the individual owners, who, by the way, include Dorset Council on a number of these sites. And I have written back in December 2021, chased the response and got the response in March 2022, saying that certain sites were not yet being considered to be developed within the asset portfolio. I'm seeking again such information from Dorset Council. So you will note that in the paper it talks about a request has been made to Dorset Council for parallel discussions on how we can address the affordable homes issue in Weymouth. And this assessment done independently shows that there is a considerable shortage of affordable homes in Weymouth that the local plan will not deliver against. What choice do we have? And we're trying to explore all those choices. So I hear what Councillor Ferrari says, and I don't agree with it.
Councillor Nicholson.
Yes, thank you. In terms of the process, Councillor, can we be clear then at what point will the public be made aware of these sites? So we're saying that after we've agreed with landowners, is there any reason why those sites which do not require consultation with landowners can't be made public? I'm very much in favour of transparency. I don't like the idea of somehow keeping this private because it might cause concern. I think we need to cause concern, then we cause concern. But I think the public have a right to know which of those sites we do not require agreement from owners, because those sites clearly are likely to go forward, and the sooner the public know what is going on, I think the better, because I think transparency in this sort of thing is important. Otherwise, I think we lose potential to lose respect of the public and be accused of trying to hide things. And if you try and hide things, people always take the worst view and think, well, what else are they hiding? So I'm very much in favour of transparency on this, and I don't see why something can't be made public, which is not in question, which you're suggesting some of these sites are, because we don't know them.
So part of the reason why I asked this question, could we publish on sites which the independent assessor said were unsuitable? The response was that you should publish all the sites at the same moment in time, because by publishing such information, you affect the land value of these properties, both up and down. If it's not a site suitable for development, that land property will diminish. If it is a site suitable for development, potentially it will impact property value. What we're dealing with here is sensitive information, and I don't feel able to do so without having spoken, confirmed the availability of the sites which we do wish to consider. That's been the advice we've been given.
Thank you, Councillor. And Councillor Hope.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor. Firstly, can I just take the opportunity to thank Councillor Northam and other councillors that have been involved in the process up to date, and especially not forgetting the volunteers who have made part of the neighbourhood forum. I'm very disappointed to hear from colleagues across the chamber here today accusations that we're not including the public. I think that proves how out of touch of this council they are. Myself, Councillor Furman, Councillor James, we all went on a walkabout around Weston, very early days in the process. And we also attended a recent open day as part of this process at the church at St Paul's. And I'm sure other colleagues in this chamber have attended similar activities in their own patch.
Yes. Yes.
I'm very sort of disappointed that with his expertise, Councillor Ferrari has never offered to support this process or taken part in any of the activities. I think an apology is due to those members with the accusations that have been made, and that the process should be respected. And with that, I'd like to support the recommendations and move forward to a vote.
I will give Councillor Ferrari an opportunity to respond if you wish.
Thank you. Especially to the factually correct comments. I attended all of the events in my ward. Thank you, Pat.
The ones that didn't happen with the
I
public.
didn't say that. What I said
Did sound like
was
you said that.
the consultation was inappropriate. The neighbourhood plan that I produced had 4 years, monthly meetings, each of them open to the public. We held at least 50 public meetings in an area of 1/20th of the size of Weymouth. That scale of meeting with the local community is what is needed, not a token walk around in the ward. Thank you.
Okay, before I take a vote on this, I'm going to speak. And I'm going to say that I'm really grateful that someone has actually taken this challenge on, because we do have a housing crisis in Weymouth. And I'm absolutely mortified, usually every Christmas, when I find out how many families are in B&Bs in Weymouth, unable to have a decent Christmas. And I'm also petrified myself as somebody who rents, that at any point I could be one of those families in a B&B. So we do need housing, and we do need it to be tackled, and I think that goes across the board. And I will also say that I recognise there's been an awful lot of engagement around this. I have had so many invites from the Neighbourhood Plan, it's been ridiculous. And I have to say, I haven't attended very many things because I've been so busy, but I have watched and I have recognised. So I thank you for actually taking this on, because it is a very real issue. And I think if we took a vote now of how many people own their own homes in this room and who rents, it might put some perspective on things. I will actually crack on with the vote though, because I think we could debate this for a very long time, and I think you already know in your hearts where you're at. So if I could, we have a proposal from
Chair,
Councillor Northern.
Can I just make my point? I don't think for me this isn't a question of whether we want to build affordable housing. I think we all agree there is an issue. I think the issue for me is the question of how we go about this and how we engage with the public on sites that may be controversial, etc. And it's a question of transparency around this as far as the council is concerned. And
I can
that's
completely
my
understand, and
view.
Councillor has answered, but we're not looking for competition when we're trying to find affordable housing. You need to understand that we don't need competition from outside resources that might be looking to fight for land that we're actually just finding out about at the moment. There's massive difference, and Councillor Northern has explained that to you. I'm going to move on to a vote, because we will debate this all night long. People have made their minds up quite clearly. So all those who we had recommended, Councillor Northern has recommended, seconded by Councillor Huttle. All those in favour? All those against?
Sorry, Anne, if your hand up.
Any
Please.
and any abstentions? Okay, thank you. With that, we bring the council meeting to a close.
That's the end of the meeting.